Father Georgie. What a nice boat.
Good to see another brother around here.
Yes, of course it is.
I'm going with him.
Get back in the cellar.
I'm going.
It's too late. It's too late.
What have you done to it?
Kicking off this list at number 10, Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. Now, I'm pretty sure most of y'all will disagree with Evil Dead being in the top 10, but for someone like me who loves the Evil Dead franchise and who's also a huge Sam Raimi fanatic, then y'all shouldn't be surprised of why it cracked my top 10. To me, it's probably the best of the Evil Dead franchise. While it does maintain some of the aspects of the first movie, the film was such a perfect mix of both comedy and horror, along with special effects that look awesome, an engaging story, and also a great performance with legendary actor Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams. Evil Dead 2 is an eternal cult classic that is purely entertaining from start to finish. It's what made the Evil Dead movie such an iconic franchise, and overall, it's just a perfect comedy horror flick. Coming at number 9, Scream. If you're looking for a horror movie that is very smart and clever, then look no further than Scream. As a matter of fact, this film right here is what practically resurrected and reinvented the slasher genre back in 1996. It came at a time when the genre of horror and slasher movies was basically like going through a rough shape back in the early 90s, and it was a breath of fresh air as it started a trend of these like suspense-driven horror flicks. To me, almost everything in Scream just works superbly well, from the performances, the cleverness, the thrilling plots, the one-liners, and the way how this movie just respected so many other great horror films that came before it. Legendary horror director Wes Craven did such an excellent job of constructing this movie that made you think while also entertaining you at the same time. And while sure this movie would gain a lot of copycats after its release, but I think we all can agree that there's only one Scream.
Careful. This is the moment when the supposedly dead killer comes back to life for one last scare.
Coming at number 8, John Carpenter's The Thing. Now, I'll never forget watching The Thing for the first time back in junior high and just being so terrified of this film. This movie legit scared the living shit out of me, where I couldn't even sleep for a whole week after watching it, which pretty much shows you how intensely scary this film is. The Thing is John Carpenter's most gorgeous looking movie, which takes place in Antarctica, where you have these group of scientists discover this mysterious looking object, which turns into this like monstrous alien creature that you can't accurately describe. The movie gives off a strong sense of paranoia because you don't know who's been infected with the alien monster creature, which causes every single one of the characters to develop trust issues with each other because of the fact of how inescapable the monster creature is. Not to mention the fact that the practical effects in this movie look absolutely amazing. Even with this movie being made in 1982, it still holds up very well to this day in 2020. Matter of fact, it looks better than most movies that you see today with CGI, and that right there is fucking saying something.
Yeah, fuck you too.
Coming at number 7, Alien. Now, to me, Alien has to be Ridley Scott's greatest movie, and while sure he's made some other fantastic films like Blade Runner, Thelma and Louise, Gladiator, and even American Gangster, just to name a few, but when it came to Alien, this movie was just such a perfect mixture of being a sci-fi movie while also being a horror flick as well. With a combination of jump scares and visceral body horror, Alien is really scary considering the fact that it takes place in space, which is pretty cool considering the fact that nobody can hear you scream. Plus, I can't forget to mention Sigourney Weaver, who made Ellen Ripley an icon with her fantastic performance, and in my opinion, she's probably the greatest and most badass female character in cinematic history. But all I'm trying to say is Alien is definitely a bona fide sci-fi horror classic, and I suggest this to anybody who hasn't watched it, because trust me, you will not be disappointed. Coming at number 6, A Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street for sure definitely deserves to be in the top 10 because it's probably the most creative slasher movie of all time, with having this amazing concept about a man who comes to kill you in your dreams. And that's what's so great about the movie, because what's so scary about a horror movie that makes you afraid to go to sleep? Hell, it always kept me awake as a kid. I remember being so terrified of Freddy Krueger, always thinking that he was probably going to kill me while I was sleeping. The late Wes Craven proved time and time again to be such a fantastic horror director because of the way how he was super creative and the way he just really always knew how to scare the living shit out of people. Nightmare on Elm Street definitely came at the perfect time during the peak of slasher movies during the 80s. It would spawn a shitload of sequels, it would inspire other great horror movies for years to come, and it would solidify Freddy Krueger as one of the most iconic characters not just in horror movie history, but also in pop culture.
I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
Coming at number 5, John Carpenter's Halloween. While The Thing may be John Carpenter's best movie, but when it comes to Halloween, I'd say it's probably his most iconic movie. I mean, if I'm being honest, almost everything about Halloween just screams iconic. From the premise, the musical score, a fantastic lead character in Laurie Strode played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and most importantly, Michael Myers, who is one of the greatest slasher villains of all time. The best thing about Halloween is the masterful camera work from John Carpenter, as he gives us a glimpse of Michael Myers hiding behind cars, bushes, and trees, which gives the movie its infamous sense of impending dread, as you never know exactly when or where he will appear to kill you, and it helps heighten the scares when they arrive. Number 4, The Silence of the Lambs. Well, most people argue that The Silence of the Lambs is more of a thriller, which I can understand in some cases, but with this film having the ability to scare audience, then I would definitely count it as a horror movie. Merely everything about The Silence of the Lambs is just pure brilliance. From the writing, the premise, the cinematography, and especially the performances from Jodie Foster's Clarice Starling, who's one of the greatest protagonists in cinema history, and especially Sir Anthony Hopkins' Hannibal Lecter, who is such an iconic figure to the genre. It's such a beautifully paced movie that'll have you at the edge of your seat, because at one moment your heart is pumping with adrenaline, but then the next moment you are utterly terrified by what Hannibal Lecter might do because of how unpredictable he is. Overall, The Silence of the Lambs is a must-watch for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. Not only is it one of the greatest films of the 90s, but it's also one of the greatest horrors of all time.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Coming at number 3, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Now, y'all cannot have a top 10 horror list without putting Psycho, because this is the granddaddy of them all. Sure, it wasn't the first ever horror movie, but it's definitely the most influential and most groundbreaking horror movie of all time. As a matter of fact, Psycho basically springboarded everything, because most of these horror and slasher movies that you see today owes its lineage to Psycho, because without it, then I don't even know if most of these horror movies that you see today would probably even exist. Sure, most people could say that it's not as scary as people make it out to be, but it's definitely the one that perfectly nailed the blueprint for how you make a perfect horror movie. The music, the plot twist, and the way how Alfred Hitchcock subverted your expectations in ways that you couldn't even fathom. In terms of this movie's impact, I could have made Psycho number 1. I was very, very close to making it number 1. I was close. But there were just 2 other movies on this list I just felt were slightly better. But even with that, it doesn't take away the impact of Psycho.
I hope they are watching. They'll see. They'll see and they'll know. And they'll say, why, she wouldn't even harm a fly.
Coming at number 2, The Shining. While Stephen King may strongly dislike this movie, mainly due to the fact that it had a much more different take from his book, but nevertheless, The Shining is such an atmospheric masterpiece. It's legitimately scary and very unsettling because of the way how this movie superbly uses fictional horror to explore real horrors, and how we get to see the deterioration of a man who becomes this like deranged lunatic. I think it's probably the best made horror movie of all time. From the sinister overtones, the creepy imagery, to Stanley Kubrick's cinematic brilliance, and performances that are just absolutely magnificent, especially Jack Nicholson's Jack Torrance.
Here's Johnny.
And the number 1 greatest horror movie of all time is The Exorcist. Yep, The Exorcist is without a doubt the number 1 greatest, most scariest horror movie of all time. It is. It's such a well-directed movie filled with flawless acting, great source material, brilliant editing, and wonderful cinematography that adds to the uncanny atmosphere of the film. The Exorcist really brought a whole new concept to the horror genre when it became one of the first movies to explore demonic possession, where you have a mother who plans to pursue a career in acting until that's all changed once her 12-year-old daughter Reagan is possessed by the devil. The Exorcist really gets under your skin because not only is it extremely terrifying, it's disturbing, very gross, and it's very unapologetic unapologetic when it comes to his profanity. And with all that is why The Exorcist definitely deserves the #1 spot on my list.
Let the enemy have no power over me.
And the son of iniquity be powerless to harm.
Your mother sucks cocks in hell,
Lord, hear
Paris,
my
you
prayer.
faithless
My
swine.
cry, come unto me.
The Lord be with you.
So what do y'all think? What's your favorite horror movie of all time? Feel free to comment down below. Be sure to subscribe to my channel for weekly videos. I'm your boy Mikey J, and peace.